What do you think of the first response from relevant departments of the governments and other specific organizations to this disaster? First of all, fire, two explosions later.
My own read is that the overall response, particularly in terms of the emergency response team, they were as fast as one can hope for. And unfortunately, it just one of those situations that their response to put out the fire, in retrospect, because the nature of the chemical was in the storage place, was counterproductive, might have even triggered a larger tragedy.
But at the time, they didn't know.
But this is a good faith thing. And this was a catastrophic event, and it affects hundreds and thousands of people, many lives lost, as you have said. And I think overall, this is a major disaster of this nature. And I mean, it's not quite the same scale as the Fukushima in Japan or the Chernobyl, many years ago in Ukraine. But I do think the overall local government response is trying to do the best they can. But it's just like nobody truly can be prepared for that. So
okay, I'll ask for your opinions later about some of the specific details in terms of first response, which is still lasting until today. And for now, I want to go to Professor Fu. Professor Fu, chemical expert these days in China is very much on demand because people want to know as much information as possible as to what might happen in the future in that specific area, and what are the materials there, what are going to be the nature of them, and what does that mean for all of the residents in those areas. May I go to some of the specific questions with you? First of all, it is being widely reported already, public record, located in the area, 700 tons about, hydrogen cyanide, and some of them are in the port area, others are in the storage area, yet both are outdoor. First of all, should it be the case that these materials be stored outdoor?
First, it is sodium cyanide, which was found in the port area. And cyanide is very extremely toxic to human beings and to the environment. So that if they are water reactive, so when they are in touch with water, the hydrogen cyanide will be formed either as a gas into the air or to form the alkali salts in the water. Both of them are very dangerous and very toxic. And for this kind of toxic chemicals, we should be well prepared for their use, their handling, and storage. So definitely it is not a good idea to put them into the open environment.
Okay.
In other words,
Second
outdoor
question.
is not acceptable.
Okay, second question. How much usually is the case, let's just say internationally speaking, that one warehouse or one company which is operating warehouse businesses should store these kind of chemicals, sodium hydrate?
Okay, there's no limit for the storage of certain chemicals, as long as some safety control need to be put in, like a handy situation. In other words, the physical conditions like temperature, pressure, and also the other situation need to be considered, so that different chemicals will be placed in a separate place, which will not mix up with other chemicals. So it will be minimize the risk for any undesirable accidents.
Let me go to you, Professor Roderick. You are an expert in city management and also been providing your expertise about port management as well. So what do you think, given the information that's made public already, about the management of this specific port and also the location of this chemicals warehouse in this specific area, in its relations with the residential area and other specific warehouses, for example, of cars, of other specific materials?
Okay, first of all, the issue is the fact that this material is usually stored in containers. And many people in the business are mentioning that when they carry stuff in containers, sometimes they are not well aware of what are the contents of this container. The container could have not been stored or packed properly. So there is at first a risk there. So that's an issue of concern, which is, I would say, across the industry, that sometimes proper procedures are not followed, proper documentation is not filled up, so those who are handling the containers are not too much aware of the risks that this could involve. On the other issue, when I've looked at the site per se, I was puzzled to find that location right there in close proximity to a lot of other activities, including residential areas. So that's per se a very big issue. That's a problem which will need to be addressed because that's a very big risk factor.
Professor,
on the other end,
Professor, may I just
yes.
add one minor question? What is the international standard, or at least the American standard, from your perspective, of having a warehouse which stores chemicals vis-a-vis its distance to residential area? Is it some specific regulation, or is it up to the states to decide whatever they want to do?
Yeah, it's up to different levels of government to decide that, but usually it's linked with the substance. So you could have some regulations, but if what is stored on the site is a little bit different, that's another issue. So usually you try to have at least some kind of a kilometer or two. You don't try to mix those activities together. And in this case, that's a problem with this disaster. There was some substance and activities taking place at the location, which at first hand should not have been taking place there. But on the positive side, the port business has not been impacted. The terminals are intact. And what happens on this location appears to be, I would say, somewhat low value activities, mostly container storage, car storage. And this is only an open surface. So I don't think there's that much economic damage. I'm using the term economic here. This is, of course, social. It's a social tragedy. But from an economic perspective, it is not as acute as I would expect.